Welcome back to another Deep Dive Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly profound philosophical essay by Zhu Feng, and it's called The Life and Death Test. We are going to explore this fascinating premise that the tiny, seemingly insignificant actions we take every single day, well, they're completely dictating our ultimate reality. Seriously, if you've ever wondered how micro-habits compound into massive macro outcomes, and we're talking not just in your daily routine, but on a cosmic or spiritual level, this analysis is going to map it all out for you. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's jump straight into the author's core premise. The essay opens with this fundamental, totally unbreakable law of nature. Massive qualitative transformations can only happen through microscopic, quantitative accumulations. As the quote says, a towering tree doesn't just magically appear. It begins as a tiny, vulnerable shoot. A massive building requires laying down one clump of earth, one single brick at a time. The author is really setting the stage for us here, reminding us that if we ignore the tiny components, the grand structure, it's never going to exist.
To really anchor this grand philosophy, we first need to look at some undeniable physical truths. You know, it's super easy to dismiss abstract concepts, but you literally can't argue with biology or physics. A stomach is filled bite by bite. A distant destination is reached step by step. A person ages day by day. By illustrating these basic physical realities, the text forces us to acknowledge how absolutely every seemingly insignificant moment actively contributes to an inevitable final outcome. There is simply no skipping steps in nature.
Moving right along to our next section, actions and relationships, the interpersonal snowball.
So, transitioning from those physical realities over to human connections, we see that this powerful accumulation principle directly governs our daily interactions too. Think of it like an interpersonal snowball effect, where momentum is just constantly building based on the smallest of gestures. The crucial point here is that in our relationships, absolutely nothing is neutral. Every single glance, every passing word, every minor action actively builds up or erodes the foundation of our connections. It's so easy to think that a passing comment or, a quick eye roll doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of a long-term friendship or marriage. But the author's relentless assertion is that these micro moments are exactly what the entire relationship is constructed from.
And this brilliantly illustrates the direct results of our micro-habits in real time. Positive accumulation, things like smiles and kind words, slowly but surely snowballs into deep intimacy and friendliness. But conversely, we see the danger of negative accumulation. The text explicitly warns that letting just a few temper tantrums or moody outbursts slide might seem totally harmless in the moment, but those instances act as foundational cracks. Eventually, that negative accumulation will inevitably snowball into the complete disintegration of the relationship.
Which brings us to our next major theme, the spiritual snowball effect, from human to immortal.
Now, shifting gears into the author's specific spiritual framework, the stakes elevate dramatically. We're moving from earthly, interpersonal relationships to the ultimate quest for spiritual enlightenment, which the author frames as the journey toward Buddhahood or immortality. Achieving this state doesn't just happen overnight. It is broken down into the exact same micro-components we just saw in our relationships. And these spiritual pitfalls, just a little ego, a tiny bit of selfishness, a passing bad thought, a brief moment of arrogance, they are enough to cause immediate spiritual regression. Actually, let me emphasize that. You don't just pause your progress. Giving into these mental traps actively pushes you backward.
The text actually maps out a literal spiritual journey with a timeline of heavenly realms. This is presented as a precise, step-by-step roadmap for ultimate cosmic sublimation. It begins with the 1,000-year world, progresses up to the 10,000-year world, and culminates in the Elysium Immortal Island Archipelago. The author frames every single thought and action in your daily life as a literal stepping stone, or potentially a stumbling block, on the path to these very specific spiritual destinations.
Now for the core of the essay, the life and death test. Don't let them give up on you.
This brings us to the core thesis of the whole essay, and the very concept that gives the text its title. The author introduces a striking, honestly terrifying consequence of chronic negative accumulation, the idea of entities dying of disappointment or giving up hope entirely. And the entities capable of this include other people, gods and Buddhas, nature itself, and heaven. The argument here is that if you continuously accumulate negative actions, eventually these entities will completely give up on you. And once they do, the loss is irreversible. It literally cannot be salvaged. That is exactly why every small choice you make today is categorized as an ongoing test of life and death.
Let's move on to our next section, navigating life's adversities, forward or backward.
Look,
None of us are perfect, right? So how do we navigate the inevitable adversities we all face, which the text describes as necessary arrangements by the unchanging heavenly way? Well, the philosophy here is a strict, uncompromising binary. Whether you're in good times or bad times, you are either moving forward or moving backward. There is absolutely no standing still. Moving forward means maintaining your faith, your ideals, and your strict self-demands, especially when things get incredibly tough. Moving backward, that means abandoning your original intentions. The author argues that adversity is the ultimate test of your accumulation.
Now, this presents a pretty harsh reality. It's one thing to just say you shouldn't give up. It's another to understand the exact cost of doing so. The text warns that abandoning your spiritual standards during a crisis doesn't just pause your journey. It actively erases all the positive accumulation you've spent your life building. It means your prior efforts, all those tiny positive steps, are completely wiped out, and you miss the ultimate cosmic opportunity. It's a sobering reminder of the absolute power of perseverance.
Finally, we arrive at our last section, daily self-reflection, the harvest.
Ultimately, this all funnels down to intense personal accountability. The text makes an incredibly bold claim regarding the author's specific role, stating, "I am here to harvest mature crops. Your beliefs will determine your future." The author is positioning themselves here not just as a philosopher, but as a guide with a perfectly clear route for their followers, just waiting to gather those who have successfully accumulated the right spiritual quantities. It places the ultimate responsibility squarely on the reader. Your deeply held beliefs, and the micro-actions that stem from them, directly dictate your final harvest.
To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with this deeply provocative self-reflection tool pulled straight from the text. Yesterday, where did I go? Today, where am I going? It forces a really profound pause, doesn't it? It demands that you consider how your tiny, seemingly insignificant choices today are physically building your ultimate tomorrow. Are your words, your looks, and your thoughts moving you forward, or are they pushing you backward? Think on that today. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep a close eye on those daily accumulations.